Faith called it possession, medicine called it illness. This story sits in the space no one wants to face. The case was so mysterious, it inspired one of the most disturbing exorcism films ever made, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. But the real story, the story of a young German woman named Anneliese Michel, is far more disturbing than anything Hollywood could ever imagine. Let's journey back to 1968, to a small, devoutly Catholic town in Bavaria, Germany. Anneliese was a bright, deeply religious teenager with her whole life ahead of her. But then something went terribly wrong. It started with a convulsion, a violent seizure that shook her entire body. Doctors diagnosed her with temporal lobe epilepsy, a condition known to cause seizures, memory loss, and even hallucinations. They prescribed medication, but Anneliese's condition didn't improve. In fact, it worsened in ways that medicine couldn't explain. She began experiencing horrific visions, seeing demonic faces she called Fratzen. She would hear demonic voices whispering to her, telling her she was damned, that she would rot in hell. The once pious girl developed a strange aversion to religious objects. The sight of a crucifix, the touch of holy water, or entering a church would send her into a violent rage. She would tear her clothes off, eat spiders and coal, drink her own urine, and bark like a dog at the end of the day. But the craziest part? She spoke in different languages she had never learned, with voices that were guttural and inhumanly deep. Her family watched in horror as their daughter transformed into something unrecognizable. Desperate and terrified, the Michel family felt modern medicine had failed them. They were devout Catholics, and in their minds, this was not a medical problem, but a spiritual one. They believed their daughter was possessed by demons. After years of pleading, they finally convinced the local bishop to sanction a major exorcism, a rite that hadn't been officially performed in Germany for decades. Two priests, Father Ernst Alt and Father Arnold Renz, were assigned to the case. What followed was 10 months of hell. From September 1975 to July 1976, the priests conducted 67 exorcism sessions, some lasting up to 4 hours. They documented these sessions on audio tape, creating a horrifying record of what transpired. On these tapes, you can hear chilling exchanges. The priests would demand the demon's name, and guttural voices would respond, claiming to be Lucifer, Cain, Judas Iscariot, Nero, and even a disgraced priest from the 16th century. These voices would argue, scream, and blaspheme. Anneliese, in the throes of these sessions, would perform hundreds of genuflections, or squats, in a single day, eventually rupturing the ligaments in her knees. She became increasingly violent, having to be tied to a chair to prevent her from harming herself and others. During this time, she refused to eat, believing that starving herself would help expel the demons from her body. This is where the story takes its darkest turn. On July 1st, 1976, Anneliese Michel died. She was just 23 years old. At the time of her death, she weighed a mere 68 pounds. She was suffering from malnutrition, dehydration, and pneumonia. Her last words to the exorcist were reportedly, "Beg for absolution." To her mother, she simply said, "Mother, I'm afraid." The aftermath was a media firestorm. The state prosecutor charged Anneliese's parents and the two priests with negligent homicide. The trial that followed became a battleground between science and religion, a modern-day witch trial played out in a German courtroom. The prosecution argued that Anneliese was a mentally ill young woman who was denied crucial medical treatment. They claimed the exorcisms were a form of abuse that, combined with severe malnutrition, directly led to her death. The defense, however, presented a starkly different reality. They played the audio tapes in court, shocking everyone with the demonic voices and terrifying sounds. They argued that Anneliese was genuinely possessed and that they were acting in accordance with her own wishes and their religious duty. They even suggested that Anneliese had become a willing martyr, sacrificing herself to atone for the sins of the modern world. In the end, the court found everyone guilty of manslaughter resulting from negligence. The parents and the priests were sentenced to 6 months in prison, which was later suspended, and 3 years of probation. The verdict satisfied no one. For some, it was a slap on the wrist for causing the death of a vulnerable young woman. For others, it was a secular court punishing people for their faith. So, what really happened to Anneliese Michel? This is the question that haunts us decades later. Was she a victim of severe, untreated epilepsy and psychosis, made worse by a fanatically religious environment? Her neurological symptoms, hallucinations, and self-harm are all documented behaviors in severe psychiatric cases. Perhaps the exorcism was a form of iatrogenesis, where the treatment itself made the patient's condition worse, reinforcing her belief that she was possessed. Or was something more sinister at play? The audio tapes are undeniably disturbing. How could a young German woman speak in different voices, discussing theological concepts in Latin she reportedly never studied? How did she endure physical feats that seem almost superhuman? Believers point to these facts as proof of genuine demonic possession. They argue that Anneliese was a spiritual warrior, locked in a battle with forces beyond our comprehension. There's also a middle ground. Could it be a combination of both? Perhaps Anneliese did have a genuine medical condition, but her deep-seated religious beliefs and the intense environment of the exorcism opened a door to something else, a psychological phenomenon so profound that it manifested as what we call possession. Her mind, caught between the worlds of modern medicine and ancient faith, may have simply fractured. The case of Anneliese Michel leaves us with more questions than answers. It forces us to confront the limits of our understanding, to question the boundaries between mind and spirit, science and faith. Was she a martyr or a victim? Was her home a house of God or the site of a tragic, fatal delusion? The truth, it seems, may have died with her. Her story serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the greatest horrors are not the demons we see, but the ones we create in our own minds. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as compelling as I did, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more deep dives into the world's greatest art and horror mysteries.